1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Cool, cool, cool. Hi guys, how you doing? I have 25 minutes, so I can't start late. All right, so I will just give a few more minutes to... thank you. Sorry for disturbing you at the end there.
No, sorry for disturbing you at the beginning.
That's all right, no worries at all. First of all, I don't know how many people have been to Commsverse before? Okay, advice for those of you that have never been to Commsverse before, the company with the best swag. All right, just not saying anything at all, all right, but the company with the best swag, and yes, they gave me a barrel full. They must have realized I was presenting, but seriously, at the end of the last Commsverse, I said, hey, give me a big bag of your bits, and they're superb. Of course, it's just cost me a mention on my podcast, but we'll worry about that later. Right, 25 minutes. So we're going to do a fly-in visit through a number of aspects around collaboration. I'm not going to spend too much time on me. If you search for Cy Steve on Google, you'll get most of my contact details. There's two things on this slide that I do want to mention, because I'm always after more listeners. So Office 365 Distilled podcast. This is a technical conversation podcast, and we finish off with a whiskey that you will find trouble finding anywhere in the world. Okay? Yes, you can miss the whiskey if you really, really want to, but the last 2 minutes, we always round up with something new. So we're forcing you to listen to the cool stuff where we get pissed and do a podcast. But the rest is really good conversation. And Kevin's our only listener, so that's fine. The other thing I want to talk about is Plan to Evolve. Now, this is a very famous program devised by, oh yeah, me. But the concept is very simple, that whenever you put anything in Microsoft 365, it moves on, it evolves. Not only from Microsoft doing updates, but from an adoption and change and everything else perspective. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at collaboration. We'll get a couple of definitions of it. We're then going to take 5 areas of Microsoft Teams, and then we're going to break those down into 2 or 3 learning points, okay? This is not an in-depth session. Anybody here that is looking to learn anything in depth, this is not. This is a 100 level session. And what I'm going to do for every single one of you is give you one idea or another for you to run around off, take home, work how it will work within your organization, or do a bit of research. That's my objective, okay? So, yeah, we're not going to do a deep dive, not in 25 minutes. So the first thing I started looking at was a definition of collaboration. And a couple of things here that I like. The action of working with someone to produce something. Simple, deep, complex, if you really dig deep into it. I like the other one as well, treacherous cooperation with the enemy, made me smile a little bit. And the state of having interests or effort. Now, all of these things you can apply to teams. But the best one I found was actually on one of the original storyboards from the film Toy Story. Okay, so Toy Story basically said the concept of my movie is going to be, and it's written there on the bottom of the board itself, fools bite one another, but wise men work together. Now, this was 30 years ago before they realized there were females in the world. Of course, things have changed in 30 years, so I'm fairly certain even Pixar would probably say when wise toys work together, but either way around. But it was an interesting concept that was the basis of the Toy Story movie. So we're going to talk about collaboration. And of course, we're going to talk about how we evolve collaboration. The problem with this swag is it's freaking too warm for today, but there we go. Now, as long as the questions are quick, I have no problems with somebody going, that's crap, tell me something different, or coming up with something, because we do have a short amount of time. Otherwise, we're not going to cover everything on every slide, so download it, just see whether it generates some ideas or brains. Everybody good with that? I'm assuming nodding means yes, but you're allowed to go, yes, Steve.
Yes, Steve.
And I realize that there's food outside and I'm standing between it, so let's shoot on. Okay, so those 5 areas, of course we're going to play poker, so we're going to go with a high straight, all right? So the joker in the pack is chat groups. We all seem to step over chat groups, okay? And they're the one thing that everybody knows. So you roll out MS Teams, you jump straight into channels and you can create a team, and you kind of bypass the power of chat. Okay, so we're going to take a quick look at that. We're then going to move, of course, onto our jack of all trades, those channels, okay? I mean, they are literally the jack of all trades, and that's the point about them. If there's one word on here, it's about context. And of course, we now have 3 channels. So we'll look at those 3 different sizes of channels we have in MS Teams and work out how we're going to move those forward. I did tell you we were going to fly through this, didn't I? I'll be done in 3 slides' time. Not quite. The Queen. The Queen screen that looks after all of those people inside the environment on Viva. We'll take a quick look at Viva. And how we get kind of knowledge to individuals and how they add value. We'll then look at the king, of course. The king is about content sharing. The king, the owner of the team site, what their responsibilities and where they are. Of course, the usual Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. All right, and we'll start to try and briefly touch upon some of the tools to achieve some value. And finally, the ace in the pack, loop, which is probably going to be one of the biggest changing things in the next year or two. And Viva's obviously going to be a big thing, but behind all of this is going to be this concept of loop, okay, or fluid. How many people have heard of loop? Not heard of loop? Don't give a shit? All right, good. So they're the 5 subjects. Good subjects?
Very good.
It's too late anyway now, because that's what we've got. So, evolving the messaging. I'm just at the point now, after 6 months, I took over a project, when the last project manager got fired. I took over a project from Microsoft 365, and they'd already decided, which was really cool, that they were going to roll out MS Teams without channels and without teams. Okay? Now, you think, okay, that's a waste of time. But it's actually not. They're already used to Facebook. They're already used to things like Skype, for example. So why would you not just say, hey, look, I want to transition you into this new application by doing exactly the same things that you're already doing? So my first suggestion is launch MS Teams, but just with messaging. You can do it instantly like that. You can even do it without sorting the governance out from your MS Teams channels, and just let it run for a few months with some messages saying, guys, do all of your meetings now online, and you instantly get some value. As soon as you create a meeting, you get a place to chat before the meeting. As soon as you finish the meeting, you get the place to continue the chat. It's all basic functionality, stuff that they've already got there, but they can create chat groups. So the learning is very easy. So when it comes to messaging, don't necessarily think that it's kind of the bad boy in the pack or it's inevitable that it's there. Have a look into it, have a dig down, because you'll find there's a lot of value that you can do quickly. I've just finished a podcast on the Office 365 stuff, one of our wee drams, which talks about how you can get to impact faster. How many people manage MS Teams for their organization? Adopt MS Teams for their organization? Train MS Teams for their organization? Does anybody have actually anything to do with MS Teams? All right. How many people have got no idea what they do with MS Teams? All right. But you see what I mean? It's very, very quick and easy, and you don't have to worry about it. If they don't want to use it, they don't need to, but you can sort of put a good communications channel around messaging. So what else did I want to say about this? Just do the basic functionality, get them to understand context. This chat group is just about this meeting or this subject that you're working on, okay? Just the same as an MS Teams and channel will come later. That context is important. And finally, you know, don't hide the limitations of MS messaging. Use it to get them excited. Move from A to D, yeah, the awareness stage, okay, to the point where they're actually wanting to use the application, okay, going through the ADCAR process. All right, messaging. Any questions on messaging? No? Do you get what I'm trying to say here? Has somebody just learned something new? Yes, success. All right. Evolution again, channel evolution. So we're back to the jack and those channels, okay? Now, there's some things which I assume you're going to do. At this point, before you roll out MS Teams and channels, you will do governance. Won't you, Steve? Yes, Steve, we will do governance before we do MS Teams. All right? Oh, look at that. But we have to. I don't want to. I can do it without governance. Yes, you can. With MS Teams in the way it is at the moment, I said this is a level 1, but trust me, when you start doing level 3 stuff at MS Teams and expect all the federation and they start reading what they can do on Google and you've not turned it on or you've left it on and they can now connect to external federated servers and your security guy comes tapping on your shoulder and say, you did close MS Teams down before you released it, didn't you? Okay? So, you know, trust me, you do need to think about this. But Define governance around those channels. It's important. We're going to look into this a little bit more when we get to ownership. But there are 3 channels now. You know this, don't you? They are classic channels. They are private channels. Okay? And private channels are a little bit like sex. They were something that we were all looking forward to when it first came out, and then unfortunately we were incredibly disappointed. All right? So those private channels when they came out was something that we were not sure about. And now we have shared channels, which is everything sex should have been when it first came. Sorry, everything that shared channels and private channels should have been when they first came out. You need to understand what those 3 things are, okay? And then you need to understand how people understand them. And then in your governance, because you will have done your governance, you turn private channels off. Because everything that private channels can do, shared channels will do, and do it better, and do it slightly safer. So you've got a bit of work to do there. So those 3 channels, classic channels as I'm calling it, and shared channels and private channels. Here's an interesting one. How many people are doing good adoption and change around there in Microsoft 365? No, all right, that was a silly question. How many people are doing any kinds of adoption and change around there in Microsoft 365? Good. A smile? That's it, because you're happy about it as well. Yeah, mate. The thing about personas is something that I've changed my mind on in 6 months. I was a bit skeptical. If you ever listen to any of the old podcasts, Moraine and I sit and rabbit about this all the time, and I was kind of going, yeah. But they're now starting to have real value when you decide things like who can create a channel. All right, so the big debate, do we let users create channels or do we not? Well, the medium ground is we let some people create channels and we let some people not. And those personas, the types of role in your organization, will allow you to consider that. So use personas to define who can create channels regardless. So managers, mostly high power users in your office space, they can all create channels because you're assuming that they'll play with it one day, but then they'll find it's hard work, so they'll only do it when they really need to. All right, and of course the guys that are still putting boxes together in your factory have got no need to do that whatsoever. Okay, and there might be a group of people that want to just have approval to do it, so they can say, yes, I need a channel here, but my boss is just going to make sure that I'm not abusing the system. But you should always remember, it's not a bad thing having 15,000 spare team sites sitting around that nobody's using anymore. Because there are, even if you don't use third-party tools, Microsoft have got a whole bunch of tools that kind of identify those channels that have been around and emails the owners and say, do you really still need this? And the owner gets the email and goes, what are they talking about? Because nobody's been to that channel for 6 months and they don't do anything about it, so Microsoft just delete it. So don't worry too much about having too many teams, and you don't get charged for them either. But you do need to think about how you're going to evolve those channels. So we have 3, as I say, classic and private and shared. Turning on them is easy. Yes, I'll allow that and I'll block that. Okay, that's the quick decision. But shared channels can do so much more. So we're breaching into level 200, 300, but it's worth looking at how you can now safely connect shared channels with your working partners that are also on Office 365 and allowing you to reduce the number of external accounts or guest accounts and reduce those risks, and your security guys will love you. All right? How many people played with shared channels yet? Anybody using them? No? How many people just saw it fly past on the Microsoft News and went one day? Yeah? Have a look at them. There's no harm turning them on, okay? None at all, because they're basically just a way of saying, if I'm a team owner, which we'll get onto, I think, in a minute or two. Here we go. Oh no, it's Viva. I'll do that in a second. When we get to the content owners, they can enable them, so you can turn them on. They can't do any damage, and then you need to work with your kind of higher-ups in your Office 365 to be able to enable that federation with externals, and at that point, you can then kind of add people into teams from the partner companies that you work with all the time. So that was the 200 bit, so we'll come back down to the basics now. You guys still awake? Yeah. Getting hungry? Yeah. Still interested, or wish you could walk out? Still interested. That's good. That's good. All right. Let's go to the queen of everything, which is Viva. I think that might be my Viva name. I can be Queen Viva. Yeah, there's a whole thing. If you're techie based, this man here is coming up with this thing called Viva names with a group that he's working with, and I'll be Queen Viva, maybe. I did go to see the Kit Kat Club version of Cabaret in London last night, so maybe it's just rubbing off from that. But highly recommend that, by the way. If you're into West End, it's a great experience. Alrighty. So we talked about Viva. There's a few things in Viva. It's early enough at this. Oh wow! Everybody loves Viva. Look, the cane's got just a minute now. All right. How many people think they know everything there is to know about Viva besides him? Yeah, cool. How many people think they know a little bit to be dangerous? Oh, this is interesting. How many people think they only know the headlines they've read from Microsoft? All right, cool. It's interesting. There's two observations, just personal observations. Microsoft are rolling some of this stuff out too quickly. So the advantage of Microsoft 365 being able, and MVP and all the agile stuff that Microsoft are doing, it's kind of bringing things in a little bit too quick for us to be able to roll this out. So that's the first observation. The second observation is that you don't have to roll out everything. Yeah, go back to my first comment. Roll out messaging and feel proud. I rolled out messaging, guys, and your boss will go, well done, and you'll move on, and you say, next week I'm going to roll out Viva. Okay, and then the week after I might roll out MS Teams. You need to identify what's going to add the most value to your organization. And today in Microsoft 365, in the whole cloud thing, there's less dependency on some of these things. Okay, you need to get SharePoint sorted out before you can go with MS Teams and channels, or at least protected. But you can just choose to stick Viva onto MS Teams and move forward if that's the thing that would add your most value, and go talk to people like HR and go, okay, seriously, how much of a problem is this sort of well-being? How much of this problem is this, looking after the worker? How many people really are still working at 8 or 9 o'clock at night? And actually find out whether it's something that's concerning them. And that will give you every justification you need to go with Viva. Anyway, there's just a few things here. First of all, and you'll repeat after Stephen, I promise not to be persuaded to turn Viva off. Okay, because people will get migrated to email, to Outlook or whatever, and they'll start to get those insight emails, and then your boss will get somebody complaining to him, and then they'll come and say, you need to stop these emails, okay? Worst thing you can do for the organization, because it's a bugger to turn it back on again. At the moment, you could say, well, actually, what's the problem? And you could potentially do a few other things to try and appease people and show the advantage of it. This is a good one here. Set up a trust working group. I'll touch on that before I finish on this section. But trust me, once you turn this stuff off politically, when you try and turn it back on again, you're going to need to involve HR, the unions. You're going to need to involve CISO, okay, because you're touching into so many things that feel like, okay, people are being watched and looked and all that kind of stuff. And it's not really true, is it? It's not really true, is it? No, it's not really true. Microsoft said so. There's a lot of stuff on there, and you can see I put a link. So don't turn it off. Fight to keep it on with a focused campaign. Okay, I love the definition. I think I stole this from Microsoft or somebody else's website. Might have been Kevin's, I'm sure. Personalized and actionable insights that Microsoft 365 that help everyone in an organization thrive. That is such a powerful statement to get up to your board level, because they want people to thrive. Look it up in the dictionary. They want people to feel good about what they do and develop and build, and Viva can do that. Okay, and then this one here, this is a great idea. How many people are conspiracialists? They don't believe we landed on the moon. Facebook is watching everything I do. Google is listening to every word I say, whether the phone's turned on or not. Yeah, how many? Okay, but you know what I mean. If you remember when Delve was released, the workforce went nuts. When those emails come back and they say, hey, you're working too many hours out of the normal timeline, and people don't understand and they don't know. But imagine if you can make these statements by taking the credible people in your organization, like the unions, like the legal department, like HR, like one of the C-level kind of types, and run some 6-week regular meetings, get Microsoft to present to them about how safe it is, get the security people involved, and those are the people that issue the statements about how powerful this is and how it's going to help you as an individual developer, and how it's going to help you collaborate more, how it's going to help you be a better person, and how we're looking after you and spending a lot of money on this. Okay, so does this make sense? How many people have a board like that, a division of trust within HR? No, you see, you heard it here first, and I did steal it from somebody else. I don't care. All right, this is a great idea. You've probably got a governance board already, so make it a kind of subset from that. So the easy thing to do is just go and talk to legal and say, look, okay, we want to do this. It's all safe, but it looks like it's not. Can you come and make it safe for me? Just the same as you get the legal team to read through, the sharing agreements with Microsoft and all that kind of stuff. All right, how many people like this idea are going to start thinking this one through? Not enough of you. Seriously, take it, write it, dream about it tonight, or me. Okay, but that is the way to go. I have 4 minutes. Is that correct? Okay, so Viva evolves. Good. Site owners. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. When I own a team site, I am now responsible for the content on that site and who sees that content. Full stop. It doesn't matter what your internal policies are, there will be something somewhere that says an administrator has these responsibilities. They're probably in IT. Okay? That is going to change. Now, site owners are never owned by tech. They've never owned tech. They've never been responsible for that kind of stuff. If you talk to CISO, your security team will say, okay, guys, so you're now able to decide what you get uploaded, how you share it, and who can see it, and what rights they have over it. So you are now an administrator, and there are these rules and things that you now need to apply with. Okay? So they're not techie, but it's incredibly powerful. That's what MS Teams does. And yes, the usual power and all that kind of stuff. But there's some concepts that they need to be aware of. Least privilege. How many people know what I mean when I say, from a security perspective, least privilege? Okay, am I going to ask about who gives a shit? Because you're all going, oh God, he's off again. No, it comes from military security settings that you only on a need-to-know basis kind of stuff. But in collaboration terms, we don't know what people need to know. So you've kind of got to work this out about the least privilege on a different subject we're not covering today, but content categorization. So this is confidential, can only be seen by these people. That message needs to be sent to site owners, for example, so they don't share something with somebody they're not supposed to. So, and then Microsoft have got a lot of tools, and that's a different session at 800 level. Yeah, that can go iron. Teach them, okay? You've got to teach them on a regular basis. Team site is SharePoint, so show them that there's a bit of SharePoint behind the sites. Member sharing is optional, metadata still matters, okay? There's a few things here you need to do with site owners. You're not just taking this site and saying, here you go, guys. Okay. How many people allow people to create teams or sites in their organization on their own? Okay. How many people are thinking that's the way they'll go? Yeah. How many people don't know? How many people don't give a shit? Because you really are not... Are you in the right session? All right. And channels, I've already covered the difference between channels. So if you are going to turn off private channels, okay, then let the site owners know what the different channels are and how they should use them and that kind of stuff. All right. I've got one word in red here. You can't miss it. You probably can because there's too many words on the slide. But I really wanted you to be able to take this away and read through yourself. And that is context. The whole point about sites is context. It's crucially important, okay? I only create a team site because I have a particular subject. Yeah? And so it's worth thinking about. Finally, monitor them, okay? Sort out their capacity, their usage, training. Microsoft tools themselves, not so good. PowerShell gives you a little bit more power, but this alone is one of the reasons that people like Rencore and ShareGate and all those third-party tools have a bunch of monitoring tools. But don't just buy it and forget it. It still won't do it for you, okay? But it might keep you in the job. All right. Come on, move on. Why are you not moving on? All right, we're going to get on to the last one, of course, which is about Loop. How many people have played with Loop? How many people played with it once and then never went back to it? Yep, all right. It's incredibly simple, isn't it? Sorry, it's incredibly simple, isn't it? Okay, too simple? But I think that's the value of this product. It's only just started, okay? It's Microsoft's first release, and there are just some pretty cool things that will allow people to collaborate, that will stop the fools bickering at each other and allow the wise men to share. Okay, it's very easy to do, and I got a few comments on here, okay? It's a one-to-one tool, all right? It's in meetings or in one-to-ones. It's not in channels yet. There are some extra features in channels you should go look at, but in this particular case, they're not sure how it's going to be collaborative. But in a meeting, it is the perfect tool for your minutes. Okay? Because you can open a chat box immediately, throw in a text box or a bullet box, and say, guys, we're going to put our minutes and our actions in here. A second chat box, and eventually you'll be able to use one chat box, but at the moment it's two chat boxes. Set up a task list. First thing you do. Okay? And because you're experts in messaging, you know you can do this before the meeting starts. So you set up your meeting, boom, you go to your chat box, there's the meeting chat set up, you open it up, loop, okay? And then everybody can just click in there and start adding items. So whereas I'm organizing a monthly meeting on governance or on some other sad subject that I'm forced to do, okay, then I can say, these are the minutes, guys, and people will start filling in the minutes themselves. So you can just say, John, can you add that to the minutes so you can move on and get prepped for the next subject? And it just happens in so much real time. And there's a link, the title at the top of the loop, you click on it and it opens up as a web page. And so now they get lots of space to put this stuff in, and you can use the same loop for rotating meetings if that's what you need to do. If you listen to the last podcast, I'm trying to force Moraine, who's an MVP. That's one of those things on there. Like, I don't, all right? But there's obviously something in the works around note-taking and OneNote and MS Teams that us plebs, any MVPs in the room? Now I can't convince them. Those plebs don't know about yet, but obviously Moraine doesn't. He was saying, I cannot deny, or, you know. Anyway, but there's a few things happening there, and I'm convinced it's going to be around loop. It's instant value. Instant value, okay? They don't have to open another app, all right? They can put tasks in there, and yes, I know, it would be nice if I put a task in there and it's automatically copied to task, but it's not there yet. It's just simple to use. And I like this simple to use with 3 instructions. It is, you know, you're in the middle of a meeting, you click the button, you choose what type of you want, you put a title in, and you go. And they're in your OneDrive. So you can go back to them at any time. You don't need to go and dig around to the meeting. You can go back to them, and then you can share them with other people. So if you want to say, hey, boss, these were the minutes from the meeting, it's in this fluid. How many people go into this more than 2 or 3 times a week? Yeah, I'm there. No? Try it, seriously. It's a very, very cool tool, and lead by example. And in terms of making my podcast I mentioned earlier about adding value faster, all right, this loop is one of them. But I will warn you, if you do a Google search on loop, there's lots of people talking about the shit that's around the corner, but the problem is that stuff's been there for months and nothing yet has risen its head. So I honestly think that by Ignite in October, we should see some additional things here, and it will start to get deeper. But that's not the time to launch it. The time to launch it is now, why it's only 3 steps to use. And just tell everybody, it will evolve. All right, good. Then that's me done. Everybody picked up a nugget or 2 to take home? Yeah. Superb. All right. I have got a minute probably for any questions.
Yeah, it's only, so there's no one else coming in until 1 o'clock, so welcome to do a few more questions.
More than happy.
Lunch out there. Any questions?
I do have a question. You said you asked how many people let individuals just get on and make groups.
Yep.
There was no comment to that, so I wondered why you asked that question.
Perennially, as consultants or whatever groups, techie groups we get into, when everybody talks about SharePoint or MS Teams, it's are we going to let the average member create a site or an MS Teams? And so self-service, self-creation, as it tends to be tagged, is always one of those subjects that people get concerned about. So that's why I think it's becoming less of a potato now because Microsoft have developed the tools. So if that's the area I was talking about that you're referring to, it's always a question is who will I allow to create a site? And so that was why I was referencing and making sure the right people can and the right people can't. Trust me, somebody will create a site to discuss something that's completely alien to what anybody really needs. And somebody will create a site to make it public. And somebody will create a site, and so you kind of just need to manage that process. But that's all. It's about saving yourself some work to do. But the value is give everybody the tools unless there's a reason not to.